Hey guys, Kirk here, and thank you for joining me on a new video on the channel. In this video we are going to be converting our landscape, which is world partitioned, into Nanite, and then we're going to be discussing about what we're going to be doing over the next few videos in the course of this series. As it stands now, we're at a particular good rate of our series, Build Worlds V2, in which we have set up our landscape material, set up a bit of a world, and I've added foliage to this world to the best of my ability, using packs from the Unreal Engine marketplace. All the packs I've used, I'll close this down. I've got City Park, European Beach, Kite Demo, Open Foliage, that Venice fast building is just a testing thing, but an Assetville as well. Now all of these packs are not used. I've just imported them into this project to test out different bits of foliage. A few videos ago I did cover foliage and how to set it up. If I come into my landscape material here, in that particular video we set up this top row here for our ground foliage, and essentially I've added trees into there and added our dirt foliage. So as you can see, once it comes back to fruition, you can see we've got our foliage here, which is nicely distributed with our bushes and that, but on our dirt section we've got hardly any grass. Obviously, you know, we'll have bits of grass like this, otherwise it won't look too realistic, but you can see on our dirt section here we've got little rocks and little leaves and twigs on there as well, just to divide it up a little bit. But as it stands here, our foliage is at a decent rate. If you've followed the video from the past about foliage, feel free to pause it and set it up like I have done it. I've got a flat ground foliage there and a slope foliage, and I've added a slope mask. I've not built the slope mask. This slope mask is available in the functions library. So if I go slope mask, you'll see I get that function right there, and I've utilized that with the values of 6 on the fall off power and 0.0026 on the contrast, which stops, or should stop, this foliage from growing on these slopes. As you can see there, it's doing a nice little job of that. Obviously you get these little bits here, but eventually once our environment starts to be getting to be modelled, if you like, more detail on the sculpting, then we can iron out little bits like this. But for now, like I say, in today's video we are going to be enabling Nanite on our landscape. It's a little bit different than you would do with a standard landscape than you do with World Partition. Not massive difference, but it is a little bit different in the order you've got to do it in. And then, like I say, once we've done that, we're going to be running through and discussing about this landscape shader and what we can change to it, and essentially debugging it and exposing active functions and stuff like that. Okay, so let's get started. First things first, I'm going to let it rebuild. In fact, I'm going to turn the foliage off. I was going to open my landscape material instance, but default value here will be fine. I hit apply now. It should be off. I'll just do a quick save. Let's just see. As you can see, that's not worked, so I will have to go into my landscape shader, the material instance, and turn it off here as well, like that. The reason I've turned the foliage off, as we all know, foliage takes up a lot of processing power, and now we're converting our landscape to Nanite. That's going to take a lot of processing power, and it does take a while, which I will pre-warn you about, but I'll mention that again later. So I'm going to go to lit mode here, Nanite visualization, triangles, and if I enable that, you'll see there's nothing there. I can still move about, but it looks like I'm not. That's because there's nothing Nanite in the scene. You know, if I go back to my material instance and enable my foliage, and just let this rebuild, like so. And then if I go to lit Nanite visualization triangles, you can see clearly here that all my foliage is Nanite. This is for best performance. Don't worry about the flickering. That is essentially just a thing with this visualization viewport. It's not a bug or anything like that. It's just because our foliage is moving. That's essentially what it is. So it's trying to grab each frame of that foliage. Blah, 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 blah. But that don't matter. But as you can see, all my foliage is Nanite, but the landscape isn't. As you can see here, and we want to make that landscape Nanite, which will help us with performance massively. So I will go ahead and turn my foliage off again. Quickly save my material instance and go away. Okay, so to enable Nanite on a world partitioned landscape, if I come to my landscape folder here in the outliner, you'll see my landscape is there. Hit the drop down and you'll see I've got these proxies, which I think is 12 in there, but it doesn't matter. So essentially how we're going to do this is we're going to get our outside folder, if you like, which is called landscape, and we'll scroll down the details panel and you'll come up to this bit here what says Nanite. You can see it says enable Nanite. You can just select that one and then click enable Nanite like so, and what it's going to do now is just build that Nanite data onto our proxies and landscape structure, if you like. So as you can see now, I've just clicked Nanite on there, and all my streaming proxies have now got that asterisk there, which is indicating it needs to be saved. But we don't do it just yet because we need to actually build the data of our landscape. So from here, we'll just click on landscape again. We're going to hold left shift down on the keyboard and click our bottom proxy. You could essentially do this through the landscape, but once you hit build data with just the landscape selected, the streaming proxies will not get Nanite. I have tried it and this takes a while as well. So what I did is enable Nanite on my landscape master, if you like, and then after I enabled Nanite, it enabled the Nanite on all of our streaming proxies, and then you need to select them all like this and then click build data. Before we click build data, I've just done a quick count there. I've got 16 proxies. Now it's a good idea to count your proxies so you're up to date with what box comes up next. Once I hit build data, a box is going to appear saying, let me just quickly cancel that. It's going to say building Nanite data blah 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 0 of how many proxies you've got. It's very advisable, and I've said this in the past about different things, that you let Unreal Engine do its thing. It may look like it's crashed, you may get to 94-95% and it does nothing for a hell of a long time. Just let it build its data. It's essentially building the Nanite data for each proxy, and you'll get to the last proxy and it will stick there for some time depending on the power of your machine. Just let it do its thing. Don't Alt F4, don't Alt Control and Tab and all this good stuff and end task. Just leave it building its data. Once you get to that last proxy data, what it's doing there is building all the data for all proxies into the last proxy, and then Unreal Engine is going to try and auto save, and this is all happening with just that little box on the screen saying building proxy data or whatever it's saying, Nanite landscape proxy data. Just leave it doing it. Go and make a coffee, go and watch a film or something, or a program, because it, like I say, depending on your machine, it can take some time, and then we'll come right back after we've done it. I know it's going to take a while. You guys now know it's going to take a while, so we'll come back to it and discuss what is coming up with regards to our landscape shader. So I'll see you on the other side. Hey guys, welcome back. Okay, so mine is finished. It did not auto save, so that's probably why it was a little bit quicker than expected. But if I click on Nanite landscape now, you'll see that Nanite is now available. And if you click on each proxy, you'll see that where's my Nanite? Nanite is available on all of them. Select them all, you can see Nanite is updated. If I close all these now back down, get rid of that. 19 unsaved, this needs to be done. So we'll click on that and it's going to save whatever things we've done and all our proxies as well. So I'm going to save selected, let that save. Okay, so now we have saved. Let's have a quick look. Click on lit at the top here. Nanite visualization triangles, and you can now see that our landscape is all Nanite, which is great. At this section, you can add displacement to this. As you can see, the whole of our landscape is Nanite now, which is absolutely great. As you guys know, that displacement is available, but like I said, it's not available on such a landscape that is so large at the minute. So we can't do any displacement updates just yet. I mean, I could do a little video on its own about how to do it in a separate program, but I want to do it in this particular material. But for now, that's the Nanite section done. We have now got Nanite. So if I go and show FPS, you can see now I'm getting 60 odd frames per second. Obviously, foliage is not enabled. We've got 16 actors with physical materials need to be built. If you get that message, at the moment that doesn't really matter, but to solve that, you just go to build, and then build landscape or build physical material only. And you'll see it'll just keep coming up with that. It doesn't matter what you do, build landscape, doesn't matter, it'll always come up. Okay, so it's got 17 unsaved again. I'm going to save that. That's got to do with the physical material. I think this should be relatively quick. But like I say, what I want to do now in this series is we've spent so long building this material up. But I've noticed that we've never really spent time to debug this particular material. By debug, I mean things working and not working. As you can see, that physical material thing still exists, so it doesn't matter. So what I mean by is we've not really debugged it. Macro variation, does it work well? Let's open our material instance and find out. I'll go ahead and turn off show FPS. Yeah, and all that stuff should disappear. So macro variation intensity, if I increase that, you can see it does work, but it's not the best. I mean, it is adding a bit of variation. If I reduce that right down, you can see that macro variation is now turned off. And if I increase it some, you can see it does that. So macro variation does work, but as you can see, it makes it all a little bit more brighter, which is great. It didn't work before this, and this is why I brought up the debugging thing. Before, pardon me, before this video, my macro variation was before my RVT. I had a little look through documentation, and they recommend your macro variation goes right at the end, just before your output. So all I've done is swapped this lot here from here to here. That's all I've done. And what I want to do now, like I say, is start cleaning this up. So I've got my enable macro variation. It's off by default, but I'm going to enable that by default because macro variation is needed. And you can see it's at the top here, enable macro variation. I've got my intensity there. You can add more controls to that. I'm going to go 0.6 for this, like so. Let's have a quick look. And yeah, it's nice enough that we're seeing bits of dark bits and bright bits which break up the texture repetition. But as I've said many a times, you can't always do that. Okay, so what I want to do now, I know macro variation is set up to a decent standard. Is just go inside it, and this is where we start debugging and decluttering our material. So as you can see here, a bit jumpy there, As you can see here, all our stuff's set up. We don't really need to change much in here. This particular function is fine. So I can close that off, and what I'm going to do is grab them all like that. I'm going to right click, go to the bottom, collapse nodes. You can see it's collapsed it into that little box. And in here I'm going to put macro variation. Right, so I hope that's how you spell it. It's not a big deal if not. And then I'm going to send that over here, like so. At the minute, everything's fine. I can just make this dead smaller, like so. And now we've decluttered our material a little bit more. And we can do the same with our runtime virtual texture. Just highlight all of it inside. Right click and collapse nodes. And it puts it all into a little box like that. I'm going to get on here and put RVT logic. Like so. As you can see, we've got our inputs. If you hover over it, you can see we've got a little image of what's inside. Double click it and it'll open it up inside. Now we've got two inputs here, which is a false input and just an input for our material attributes. So you can change this. So you can see here I've got inputs. I can put material, yeah, and I can actually grab this and swap it. And then false, and this could be called switch, or I might put at the front RVT switch, and there we go. And now I can hit apply, and that's saved. If you find yourself in this particular kind of section where you've got here, you may be used to just going up here, saving it and clicking off and just clicking the cross. You don't need to do that with these collapse nodes. Just press this little arrow here and it'll send you back out here. But you can see now I've got my RVT logic there. I put that here, make this smaller, like so. Do that, just make it a little bit bigger so it's more streamlined. And I'll get that over here. This comes from the same. I'm going to grab this pin. I'm not entirely sure why I need that. If I just open this up again, like so, what I can do from here is just click on this material, double click it with a pin, and drag that into the false. Simple as that. Yep. Hit apply. It might get rid of the RVT switch. If I do the inputs, RVT switch, I can delete that input now. Hit apply, save, come back out of there, and you can see now that I've got that little, I don't need that. Drag this over into there. And there you go. And now my macro variation and my runtime virtual textures are both here in their own little space, not clogging up too much of the landscape shader. I could do the same for foliage as well, but I'm going to leave that now for debugging purposes. Pardon me, again. So, by debugging, let's have a look. So what we're going to do is find faults in our landscape material. If I save my landscape instance, material instance, the first thing I have noticed, which is a problem for this debugging, is you can see here our snow is on our mountaintop. If I come to I'm not going to arrange anything in here. Where is my snowcat control? So as you can see here, I've got my world height. I move that up and down. You can see it's moving up and down here, like so, which is fine. My world height transition, I can increase that to reduce the amount of transition on there, which looks great. And edge breakup and all this good stuff. As you all know, we've all built this in a previous video. But that's not the point. The point of this is, if I come to the bottom of my material instance, I have a snowcap UVs. So if I come to here now and I'm really close, you'd think my near would change this, but it actually isn't. Yeah? But if I go to the far, my far UVs are changing. If I increase this loads, you can see my UVs have got a lot smaller. I'm going to keep that around 50 so I can see it from a distance. And the problem is, if I move away now from this, them texture UVs are not changing. If I go to a 1 and a 1, you can see them texture UVs are not changing. So my first problem I've got is my distant mask. I don't believe it's a distant mask. As you can see, I've got cheap contrast and fall off power here. I'm not sure where that's coming from. No, in fact I do. It's coming from here. So that's another thing we need to change, which is a part of debugging. So I could actually do that right now. So foliage, copy that word, left control and C. Right, so I could go foliage, maybe slope will fall off, like so. And then this one could be my foliage, slope, contrast. And there you go. So now I need to add these two into the same group as them. I'm not sure where these are in here, to be honest. Yeah, I really don't know where they are. Can't see them. Which is fine. That is mod actually. Where is that? Where is that? There's the foliage controls. So essentially, I'm going to change the group here to foliage controls. That should be 4. Background textures, forest biome. As you can see, I've not got any form of foliage controls on there, which is. Oh, sorry, I need to enable it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set priority here 1. That's 2 already. This could be 3. This can be 4. I'm going to change that contrast word to blend, because that is essentially what it is doing. It's blending the slope. Hit apply. And then once I enable foliage, ground foliage, it should come up. There you go. Foliage controls. Now, essentially what we could do here with this as well is use a vector 4. Like so, and we'll convert this to a parameter, and we can just call this foliage control. Like so. If you're used to this channel, you'll know that I've done this quite a lot before. We'll get our foliage world height start. So left control and C. Click on our vector 4. Put that in there, and now we've got that foliage world height start. We've got the transition, like so. Left control and C, left control and V. Slope fall off. As well, left control and C, left control and V. The only downside to doing it this way, although we are saving a lot on space for our material instance, which is always a benefit, but does it outweigh the fact that in our particular scalar parameters we could set a default and a min and max. Now that is my only concern by using vector 4s. So what I'm going to do is just leave that there for now. I'll set that to foliage controls. I'm just going to leave that there. Hit apply. Because I don't know whether I want to use a vector 4 for my foliage controls. Plus I want it into a foliage group where our enable ground foliage is and all this good stuff. So yeah, that's another part of debugging that we need to do as our material gets better. But I think for now that's going to be it for this actual video, because I don't want to deep dive into this too much into a video that was specifically for Nanite. But we do know that we need to sort our distant mask logic out, and this ain't good as well. I'm getting foliage spawning on top of a mountain with snow on it. But here, our distant mask isn't working properly. Our texture breakup is working okay, but not brilliantly, which is a concern for me as well. As you can see with that distant mask as well, that this texture ain't changing as well. So our distant mask is going to be a priority as well. What I want to do as well, I'll give you a quick overrun of what I want to do. At the moment, our auto material is what we call an active function. So if we open our auto material up, we've got our snow caps in there. Open our snow caps. We've got scalar parameters here, which we've had to dive into functions. I know it's not hard, but we've had to dive into functions to find that. What I want by the end of what we're going to do over these next couple of videos is have all our parameters, all our controls in one area like this. Have them all here. And that way we don't have any active functions. They're all, what's the word I'm looking for? Flaccid. They're all just there, being normal, just doing our logic. But if we go in there, we've got snow caps. Then we've got our flat ground main, which is an active function within an active function. Surface normals, active function. We've got our scalar parameter there. Our surface normal textures there. Our surface normal controls is there. I want to expose all of this, so all our controls are outside here. We've got our material layers. A good way of doing this as well, like we've got all these scalar parameters, our vector 4s. If we get all these outside into here, especially our material layers, we can add our material layers to our landscape layer blend node, and that way we can actually paint with each individual layer, and we can quickly swap between each layer as well here and hard code it in. So yeah, that's essentially what I want to do. I feel this video is quite long already. Just going to save it, and we're kind of back to normal. Just let my foliage grow again, and we'll just go over this again. So our lit nanite visualization triangles, and you'll see that everything is that beautiful color of nanite triangles, which is exactly what we want. Let me just quickly check the FPS right now. It won't be like 60 like it was before because of the foliage. We'll do this. What's that? 30? 35? I suppose it's alright for the size of the landscape. We get close here. Does it go down? It stays around 30. Not a big deal. We could probably work on that. So yeah, I believe that is it for this video, guys. We've done the nanite landscape thing, which is essentially what I wanted to do. Plus I wanted to give you guys who are following the series as a whole some overview of what we're going to be doing to our landscape material, so we can easily identify any bugs, any problems, go over all our logic, and just generally find out what our bugs are. And then after that, we are going to be looking, like I say, at post-processing, and generally that should be around it for then. I'm probably going to put this project up for sale if anyone wants to purchase it, so they don't have to go through the whole series again. So yeah, I shall record another video where we are debugging our landscape and cleaning it up some, so we can control our main functions through the landscape material itself, and we're not diving inside function after function to try and find out what the problems are. So I shall see you in the next video, guys. Thank you very much.